What is up, YouTube? Today I'm going to show you a little example that I was working on whenever I was doing a Twitch stream. And so this is going to show how to use useReducer and how to use it in an interesting case for populating a form and then clearing it and having that show and hide. So let's walk through it and I'll show you the cool stuff. All right, so as you can see here is our table of values. Now, I was working on a Chrome extension, like I mentioned, and I was having some trouble with useState because I really wanted to have a more complex way to manage this form that was popping up. I wanted to be able to clear the values and not have, things get updated incorrectly. And so I'll demo here kind of what is going on. And so we have different rows of values and we have different numbers and like tax values. These by default are usually null until they get populated. And so we can hit edit here and this will pop up a form. And because these values are empty, it's not going to have any data in them. And so if we populate like 1 here, 2 here, and 3 here, and then we set this paid value, then we can see that that gets updated. We go back in and we actually clear these values. Then we see that those all get set to 0 and we're back to where we were. Now, there's a lot of edge cases with this, which is the thing that provoked me to use useReducer. And so when you edit, you can see you can do these values and then you can click cancel and they go away. Or if you wanted to actually have these values submitted, then you can see they're all ones and we edit that one. But if we now, without even submitting the form, we can go and click on another row. And so I wanted this to be pretty seamless so that if you wanted to populate some data in here, you could, and it wouldn't do some unexpected behaviors. So let's jump into the code and I'll show you exactly how I implemented this. Okay, so we're in the file here and I've pulled this out into its own example and I'm going to have it be open source and I'm going to push it up to my GitHub account. So I'll leave a link in the description so that you can check it out yourself. But essentially it's just one file. I haven't broken this out into multiple components just so we can walk through it together. This is in the index TSX file and we just export our default function here, which is home, because this is just in a normal Next.js app and nothing fancy. So we have our two types. So the event, this is going to be what we use in our reducer and it's got a name, value, and type. And type is going to be the thing that is the action. And so that's going to be really important for us. And then value, this is going to be different values that are in the form. I'll also mention here, like if you have a different way of implementing this, I'm always open to learning more things. So leave a comment if there's a better way that you see to implement this, but let's keep going through this. All right. So entry is going to be just our values in that table. And then data, this is where the data from that table lives. And I've just populated it with some default values for this example. In reality, like this gets pulled from, like in the Chrome extension I was working on, this gets pulled from the web page through using a bunch of readers and like different things. So we'll jump over that and just use some default data. The way to do the cancel, it leverages this Boolean. Here's where we start getting into interesting stuff. And so this is the reducer, which is our function, and this needs to be a pure function, which means for the same inputs, it should do the same output. And so there should be no side effects. It should do the same operation. The thing you want to use for the reducer is the useReducer hook. And the function, like I mentioned before, is the pure function that takes your state and manipulates it. This is your reducer function. And then this second bit right here is going to be your state. And so this is going to be the initial state. And for us, this is the form value. This is the entry, and this is going to have just a bunch of blank values so that we can manipulate it. And I wanted to have this be populated so you could change values and it would populate the previous values so you can modify them or see what was going on. Now for our pure function here, we have two different event types. It's going to be a reset, which is going to reset our states to an empty value, and then update, which is doing some stuff here, which looks a little magical because we've paired this up with a handle change event and also with an on submit. So I'll show you a little bit more about how that works. But essentially this lets you add more things, add more inputs into your form and not have to customize each one specifically to this reducer. So we have that working, we can update things and we can reset them. Now let's go down to our handle change. Let's see where this is used in the form first. So let's go to handle change here and we can see that we have a form and it's got some style on it. And then like I mentioned, we're using onSubmit, which will let us do some nice things with controlled elements. And so we don't have to add explicit code to handle the values within these. We can leverage what the onChange events are doing. And so every time that those get updated, whenever this submit editable data gets called, it'll just have all those values, which is really handy. So onChange is going to be pretty normal if you've ever done React stuff. It takes a value and looks at the name. Whenever we receive that event, we call our dispatch, which is this set editable data on our reducer. And then we give it a type because we want to update this name and this value. Now for checkboxes, you do have to change things a little bit so that whenever it's checked, then you look for that value versus the actual target.value. So we send this on to our reducer so things get updated and then things get rendered. One of the things I added here was you scroll up whenever, like if you have a large amount of data and you're way at the bottom and you hit edit, it should scroll to the top. A nice thing to have so you're not scrolling all over the place. We need to clear out the form and then we need to set the values. And so that's what this is doing. It's doing another update here. So when we click edit, it's going to pre-populate that form. And then whenever we do handle change, it's going to take those values. And when we hit submit, then in here, if it's not a cancel form, and so from our form here, we can either hit cancel or submit. And whenever we hit the cancel button, then it does this set cancel form submission to true. And that's how we prevent modifying those values because they do get updated with handle change, but we want to just throw those away if the submit button is not hit. And so if you have a different way of handling this, I would love to hear it on the comments, but this is the way that I handled it, just introducing a different state so that we avoid doing submit on something that we do not want. All right, back up here in the top in our submit editable data, and we actually go through the data and we make our updates so that things are calculated appropriately. We set that data back to our state, and then we clear the form here with setting a reset event into our reducer. And so you can see that you are sending these event types and making sure that updating the data is done correctly and it runs through that reducer to make sure it's applied the same way each time. Something else to note here is we do have a conditional. So if we have eligible data set, then we're going to render the form. And so that is the thing that allows it to pop in and pop out because you don't want that form to always be present. If you like videos like this, hit that like and subscribe button and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks.